I remember it took my father nearly half an hour to get me out of bed. It was the Thursday morning before my bar mitzvah, and he was trying to get me to the 6 a.m. morning minyan at the conservative synagogue. And though I went kicking and screaming, the shuckling and the chanting of the old men in the synagogue, they'd have a lasting effect on me. Something about their Eastern European accents, the reverence they showed what was then to me just funny leather boxes on their arms and between their eyes. It ignited this fire inside of me, and I left that morning minyan dedicated to learning more about my Jewish identity. The irony is that I'd spend the next 6 years studying Jewish history and Zionism, but somehow I'd neglect Jewish ritual and observance. And even though I immersed myself in Jewish studies, I wouldn't set foot again in a morning minyan until the second semester of my freshman year at Emory University. Now, the circumstances of my return to that morning minyan, they're worth noting. I was in the midst of pledging a fraternity, and one of its members, who was a relatively observant junior named Joel Geller, he suffered a relapse of a devastating cancer, and before he returned home for treatment, he asked that the Jewish pledges in the fraternity wake up 2 hours earlier than normal on Mondays and on Thursdays to make sure that the campus minyan had enough 10 people to read Torah and to recite a special mishaberach, prayer for the sick, on his behalf. Now, consequently, the next Monday ended my 6-year absence from minyan. And I remember that morning vividly. And though 4 of us that headed to the minyan, we were secular Jews, I had spent years again studying Jewish history, and I was deeply passionate about my Jewish identity. And I was the vice president of what was then Emory Students for Israel. So when we entered and we saw 7 other students mumbling to themselves and draped in talit, rapping tefillin, my 3 friends, they turned to me and they said, "So what do we do now?" And I thought back to that Thursday morning minyan with my father, the last time I had had this experience, and I did not have an answer for them. And I looked down at the table with the leather boxes, and I fumbled with the straps along with my friends. I couldn't follow in the prayer book, the Siddur, and I did what I imagine many of you have done in a Jewish sanctuary. I didn't know when to stand, I didn't know when to sit, so I remained in the back where nobody could see me. And then when everybody covered their eyes for the Shema, I knew I was making a mistake because my eyes weren't covered and I could see everybody. There was bowing, there was pointing a pinky at the Torah when it was raised, there was kissing tzitzit, all of which were foreign to me. And finally, Mourner's Kaddish was recited and people began unwrapping their tefillin. And I sat there, frustrated and disheartened, because despite being this passionate quote-unquote Jew, I was a stranger to my own traditions. Now, I tell you this story because I know what it feels like to see Judaism as inaccessible. I know what it's like to see our traditions as these insurmountable obstacles. I know what it's like to love being Jewish, but feel anxious, intimidated, even afraid to enter a sanctuary. To be corrected when you choose the wrong book from the back of the chair in front of you. Baffled by the Hebrew. To look at the Siddur as a hindrance instead of a tool. I have felt disconnected, just like many of you, from the rituals and from the traditions that have been part of our people for 3,000 years. That being said, my most important and I think my most attainable goal as a rabbi is to prevent any of you from feeling isolated in a sanctuary like I felt that Monday morning during my freshman year of college. Now, for those of you that are in South Florida, keep your eyes and ears open. There are going to be learning opportunities here at Bnai Aviv. Ways to make the service, the sanctuary, and Judaism accessible to you. And for those of you scattered across the U.S., a lot of those classes will be posted online. So stay connected. Shabbat Shalom. See you all next week.